Right, guys, how are you doing today? Coming back at you with another podcast. On this one, I have Alex Sydor on the podcast. And for those of you guys who don't know Alex, you probably should because he is stupid strong for any age. He is 18 years old, if is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe you have let me pull up your Instagram just to make sure I'm not spreading any fake news about you. But I don't think I can oversell what you've done because you've done really big things in sport powerlifting. So he has 6 American records in the 83 kilo class. I believe you actually competed with Taylor Atwood when
Yeah.
he broke a few of his records.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like I stumbled upon Alex on the Instagram explore page and saw this kid and I was like, what? That was just my response, like, how? And I think it's just really cool seeing kids like you and Aiden Reuter, like Sean Mills. It's just the talent pool is just getting so much bigger with powerlifting. So I guess I just wanted to, yeah, that's basically Alex. He's really strong, handsome, obviously, but yeah, Alex. I guess what got you started in powerlifting? Like, what was your athletic background before?
Yeah. So I was playing soccer my whole life. I started playing at like 3 years old and I'm still playing currently. So like when I was like freshman year in high school, 14 years old, was super skinny. I wasn't skinny like anorexic, but I was more like skinny fat where you're skinny, but also like you have no muscle. So I was like, I want to gain muscle for soccer. And that was my main reason for soccer and for girls, basically. So I started lifting, just like bodybuilding. Started working on the three lifts, but not particularly like powerlifting. Just getting stronger in squat, bench, deadlift, which I'm happy that I knew like how to get stronger on the 3 lifts. But I wasn't putting any focus really on just powerlifting. But I was doing my 3 lifts, doing accessories, you know, doing social media on the way, tracking my progress. And then around in my junior year of high school, I found my friend was like, "Yo, you should do a powerlifting meet." And I was like, what is powerlifting? He's like, "You just max out on your squat, bench, and deadlift in your squat, bench, deadlift in one meet, and you have 3 attempts in each." And I was like, "That sounds like fun." So that was my like junior year at the beginning of the year, and then he was like, "You should do this meet in New York. It's in Long Island." Did it, and then from like then on, I just love powerlifting. From there, my career was like I did that meet.
What were your numbers at your first meet?
So I was 83 kg, 16 years old, and it was a 402 squat, a 231 bench, and a 440 deadlift.
That's
So
really freaking good for 16.
yeah, so that was my first meet, and then after that, I saw like I was like so into the sport, and I was like, I want to take this as far as I can. So I saw that high school nationals was coming up in Louisiana, and I qualified for that. Um, I was in the um, I was in the 83 kg class, and um, yeah, well, my numbers for that meet were I ran small up going to that meet, so it was like a crazy intensity, but I got stupid strong. Like I bulked hard because I was like light in the 83 kg class, and I bulked to like 183. So I bulked to like the main like to like one like the right weight, and I got so strong. So from in like 3 months, my squat went from 402 to 479. And then my bench went from 231 to 275, and then my deadlift went from 440 to 518 in 3 months because of small love. I'm not gonna lie, and gaining weight obviously. And then after that, took some time, not took some time off, but I started to recomp my weight. I got my first coach, which was Pete Rubish, and then I was prepping with him into Raw Nationals, which if you win Raw Nationals in your age category, then you can go to Worlds, and that was my main goal. When I found out powerlifting, I was like, "What's the highest thing I can get at in USAPL?" And it's to win Raw Nationals and then go to IPF Worlds and then win Worlds. So I was like, all right, that's going to be my goal. I'm going to win Raw Nationals in 2019. I'm going to make the sub junior team, and then I'm going to go to Worlds. So I got a coach so I could further my progress. And with that, I made very good progress with Pete. Going into the meet, I squatted 507, I benched 303, and I deadlifted 550. And then at the meet, I squatted 518, but they red lighted it. So I squatted 485. I benched 308, and then I deadlifted 545 for the win. And I won Raw Nationals that year. And then I was going to Worlds the 2020. And then basically after that, the whole world
Yeah, the
crumbled.
World
And
Cup.
then
Yeah.
COVID happened. But yeah, after that, I did a meet in January. Just put up, and then that's when I switched coaches actually to Pete Rubish to Sean Noriega. We did my first meet with him. It was an okay meet. Squatted 529, benched 308, and deadlifted 308. Yeah, 308, and then deadlifted 568. So that was an okay meet, but I was just getting started with him and used to his programming. And then we were prepping for high school nationals that year, got canceled. And then prepping for worlds, got canceled again. So basically, like both those opportunities just got canceled, which sucked. Um, and then just kept training. Like we just literally just kept training. And I had a home gym at the time. And I just started adding more stuff to the gym, added more plates. And then I started getting crazy strong in my home gym. I deadlifted 610 paused in my home gym, and like everyone was like, "Holy shit! Like this kid's getting so strong." My squat was like blowing up. I think I squatted 500 for 3, and then I just started getting stupid strong. And then I was like, "All right, well, I want to set some American records before I turned 18 because I was 17. I once in like after Raw Nationals, I turned 17. So I was like, all right, I want to set some teen two records, which is the 16 to 17 class. So I was like, all right, well, I've been working in my gym for around like 6 months now. Let's show the work. So we started prepping for Florida State Championship in October. And going into the meet, my best squat was 562. My best bench was 3 353, and my best deadlift was 606. So going to that meet, those are my numbers. And then at the meet, I hit 570, bench 341, and then deadlifted 633. And then I broke the squat once. I already rebroke my record. So I broke the record once and then I rebroke it. And then I broke the deadlift record, and then I broke the total record 3 times. So that's like the clarification for like the 6 times American record. And then yeah, after that meet was gonna what was that? After that meet, then was my last meet, which was the Texas Strength Classic, which didn't go as well as I thought, but everyone thought I did good. But I did 7.5 kg less. I squatted 584. I benched 341, which is my previous PR, and then I pulled 600 for my first attempt. And then on my second attempt, I was going for my previous meet PR, 633, and then I just my hands just started slipping, and it was a factor of my grip just not holding up, and also the bars there were just like not up to par. And usually I think they use Alico bars, but they were using some weird style bar, and it just wasn't up to par, and the knurling was really dull, so that didn't help. But yeah, I failed my second and third there, and it gave me a 692 and a half total. And then at the previous Florida I told 700, so like 7.5 less. And yeah, I was pretty upset. But I was like, I'm happy that my hands slipped up here instead of collegiate nationals, which is I'm prepping now, which I'm like 26 days out, like less than 4 weeks out. And yeah, that's basically my powerlifting career summed up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, so first off, that's a pretty crazy rise to the top very, very fast. And I think that it's always interesting because whenever I do interview anybody who's been really, really good in this sport, for example, Bryce Lewis, I'll usually have some background in sports. And I just out of curiosity, were you always just kind of just pretty good at just anything that was athletic, just kind of came pretty naturally to you?
Yeah, that's one thing that I noticed. Like I was pretty good at soccer. I was really good at soccer, but then I was like decent at baseball, decent at basketball, decent at golf, decent at football. Like I was an athletic kid, I guess you could say.
Yeah, that's something that I found with a lot of athletes in general who get into powerlifting. they always tend to be the best. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that your pain tolerance and kind of ceiling for being able to push through like the suck and the fatigue is just a lot higher. Because, for example, with my clients, the clients that have an athletic background, competed in sports, one, they're easier to coach because they already have been coached most of their lives. Two, when they get tired and they're just like, I don't really feel like training, but like, it's like the last week of an accumulation block before, we're going to start the intensification, and well, volumes are going to be lower. We're going to start tapering down for like a meet or a test or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, they have an easier time pushing through that because they've been there and they have a higher tolerance. But I think that overall, basically pretty linear progress until about right now. So probably more in your early intermediate stage of training right now is probably where you're at, which like it's crazy seeing how some people like their beginner gains, they're at like 1 point, and then other people just like insanely higher.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that like one of the biggest things that you did, because I noticed that you said that like you gained a lot of weight. How much of a factor did your nutrition, I guess, play in that, in like your success, and how much did you actually pay attention to it as like a teenager? Because like I think it's a little bit different as opposed to like being like a 20-year-old or whatever, somebody my age paying attention to their nutrition versus a teenager in school. Like, because I remember like when I was in like middle school or like high school, it was like I didn't really put that much thought into my nutrition at all. It was kind of like, I might eat a pizza or like a protein shake. It doesn't matter. Like, how much attention did you pay?
Yeah. So like in my beginning of like training, it was more like hype, like, it was like bro training basically. And I was watching a lot of like David Lade. So I was like, trying to just get as big as possible, as strong as possible. So like my first year I gained like 30 pounds because just tried to bulk up, basically like imitate what he did. So I went from like 130 to 160. And I'd say my nutrition was like not very good. I wasn't getting in my, micronutrients. My macronutrients are probably pretty off. I had never tracked anything until I had to start cutting down because I was like, shit, I'm pretty not lean, or I'm not how I look. How I want to look. So I was like, I'm gonna start cutting. And basically, I just ran into a cycle of just bulking and cutting for like the first 2 years of training, where I would get really like just heavier, and I would like not look how I wanted to, but I'd get really strong. But then when I cut, I would get weaker, and I'd be upset that I'm weaker. So definitely probably poor nutrition had to do with that, because I just wasn't tracking my calories, wasn't tracking exactly what I was eating, and probably just not eating the best food. Recently, I've just been trying to eat just, I guess, better. One thing recently, I've just been drinking a lot of milk, which helps me. It's easy, it helps me like get a lot of protein in really easily, and just helps with like my bones and stuff, like calcium. So that helps. I don't really track. I track my calories right now because I have to be at a certain weight class. So like 83 kg, you have to be, below that. But obviously, I do a water cut going to. I don't really pay that much attention to nutrition about what I eat. I just kind of like, if it fits your macros, it just, that's what I try to do. Just eat a lot of protein, and just make sure that on my calories is, make sure I'm not gaining weight, not gaining too much weight, basically.
Yeah, I found a lot of times. I think it's a little bit different with powerlifting because leverages are so important.
Yeah.
Like you gaining all the weight probably improve your leverages, and then when you cut down, obviously lower energy, and then a drastic change in your leverages from
Yeah.
that. I think that a lot of times because people will kind of like how it is. If you're small, people kind of bully you for being small. They're like, gain weight. Why do you weigh X amount of weight? And then lots of times people will then start just eating everything, getting like 1,000 calorie surplus or whatever. They'll get really strong, really jacked, but then they won't like the way that they look.
Yeah.
And they they never really get used to their body, and they never really get like a consistent per performance. And I found a lot of times with my own clients and with myself, um, is if always usually the more moderate approach with like making small changes. Like I know that Ben Pollock, Ben who Ben is, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
he always talks about like for example, like especially when you're moving up a weight class, doing it gradually, doing it, in a manner that like you don't feel terrible going on into your training, where your leverages aren't completely messed up, you're not bloated, and then you can keep your body composition in check, because I think that is something that is important. I mean, like the general idea for powerlifting is basically you want to be at like a certain weight class for an index of your height. Like, how tall are you?
5'10".
5'10". Yeah, so I'm 6 foot. Like probably like for you and I, like our long term is like you're like 93.
Yeah.
US APL for me it's 90 because USPA. And so, but like doing like like a long term body recomp is probably best for most power lifters and people in general who want to have better long term progress, because it's not like a higher calorie surplus like 1,000 calories is going to like get you like that much stronger in the long run than like a 200 to 300 calorie surplus
Yeah.
above maintenance. So but yeah, I think that's like obviously still more attention than most kids take. Like you're actually aware of your nutrition, and right now, that's basically all that you really need to do is just be mindful. Like I'm getting in enough protein, enough calories. Um, anything beyond that is just kind of extra credit for power lifters. It matters a lot more for bodybuilders, I found, just because like how they look is a
Yeah.
lot more than like macronutrients will make you look a little bit different, especially depending on how you metabolize them. Like for example, this is actually like shown in like the research, but like Tongan and Polynesian people typically digest fats better than white people do, and Asians tolerate like carbohydrates better than like
Mm.
fats. So a lot of it just has to do with like what you respond best to.
Interesting.
But yeah, I guess so obviously you said that you started off doing more of just bodybuilding type of training with some base throwing in here of some with a squat bench and deadlift. And eventually you kind of got all the you had first Pete. Now you have Mr. Sean Noriega, who is coaching a legion of the great athletes. What so could you, I guess, talk a little bit about how your training has evolved? Like what's been different in terms of the whole training approach.
Yeah. So like when I started, I was just like doing whatever. Like I was just looking up workouts and stuff like to do and just bodybuilding workouts, just like chest 3x10 bench and then incline dumbbell, blah blah, whatever the rest it is. And then I watched some David Lade, and he was always saying that when you start out lifting, run a 5x5. So I looked up what a 5x5 was, did that for a few months, and I was like, okay, like it definitely gave me some strength. And then after that, looked at his programs. I like this guy. Ran like one of his programs in the beginning, and then after that, it was just like, okay, well, I don't want to keep running this. I ran this like 2 times in a row. I started doing, like Kaizen.
Yeah.
I ran like one of their programs, and then I ran their program going to my first meet. And then after my first meet, I was like, all right, I got to take it up a notch for high school nationals. Ran a Smolov going to high school nationals. And then after high school nationals, I ran Smolov again. Or I ran something else because I was like, I started cutting. I'm not going to be able to keep up with like the intensity Smolov like has. I'm going to run its bench program, but do something different for squat and deadlift. I don't remember what I did exactly for squat and deadlift, but did something else, ran that for a little bit. And then finally got a coach in the summer going to run nationals. And then basically like their coaching style is just Pete was more like linear progression where I would start at like a low baseline and then I would just like slowly work my way up. And he programs a lot of AMRAPs. And Sean is more just like DUP with like linear progression and percentages and RP combination of like everything basically.
Hmm. Which one of those approaches have you found I guess like work best? Because like obviously I think it's actually really important to notice, to point out that you did run templates
Yeah.
a little bit, and there's research showing that it doesn't really matter if you're a beginner, if you run like a customized program for you or a template. Like you might make some small thing change, but like it's not going to be like statistically significant. Whereas you were, when you get into those, beginning, like you're past your noob gains, what you're doing becomes a lot more important. And I did notice that you did say the first meet that you did with Sean didn't go very well. But then after it, I'm assuming you guys got more data and you communicated to Sean more often. You guys kind of found a training approach that worked better. So what changed during that time?
Um, it's not that like it went bad, but it just training wasn't like I don't know. Let's see. So like when I was with Pete, I think it was the frequency because I was squatting. So when I started with working with Sean, I started doing SBD days. So that's the one thing that definitely changed. With Pete, I was squatting twice, deadlifting twice, benching. Yeah, so I was squatting twice, benching twice, and deadlifting twice, benching three times. And then with Sean, I was squatting twice, deadlifting twice, and then benching four times, which was different. So my bench was like it went up a little bit, but didn't go up that much. But eventually started progressing when we got used to the volume. Um, but like it just like training was just like I don't know how to explain it. It just didn't feel. I thought I was gonna hit a higher number than I thought I was. I thought I was gonna. I think I was going for like a record that meet, and I just didn't hit it. So maybe that's why I was like, oh, the meet didn't go well. I made decent progress, but it's like I went from 518 from October to 529. It's not like terrible progress, but I guess it's just not progress that I wanted more basically, but it wasn't terrible by any means.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think I maybe mis said that, but it's not like terrible. But after that, it just training started clicking more, and we just he just realized like what worked for us and stuff like that, basically.
Mhm. I yeah, I wasn't trying to get you saying like Sean's program first wasn't good, and then all of a sudden it got
Yeah, it was
better.
just yeah,
But there are definitely small changes that do happen as as you get more data with the client, what they respond best to. I guess if you could walk through a typical week of training, what does your split look like? Uh, I guess you were talking a little bit about DUP. You don't have to get into like certain like specifics. Sean has a business, but
yeah.
um, I guess in terms of it was like a little bit more linear. I guess like how many days a week do you train? You know, what's like the general structure and
Mhm.
frequency?
Yeah. So yeah. So I squat three times a week now. I deadlift two, and I bench four. I have
How many
so
of
I do
those? So sorry, how many of those are actually like the competition? How many of them are like variations?
yeah. So squat is two comp days, one variation. And then deadlift is it switches. Sometimes it's two comp days for both them. Sometimes it's one comp, one deadlift. So it's either or. It's never um like two variations. It's always one comp, one variation, or two comp. And then bench right now we're on four competition days. Before when I had like a pec injury because when I started like working with Sean, we like really drastically improved my arch from when it was with Pete to when I was with him, and we had a lot of like not he like infused me with knowledge to like get my arch better, and it just worked. But I started getting a little like pec injury, and we started doing a thing called hook lying bench, which is like it's a really good thing for like getting your I don't even know what this muscle is called, but this muscle right here, just getting it healthier and getting your
Delt.
uh, what?
Was it like the front delt or was like a
It's like no, it's not the front delt. It's like on like the side. It's like the
coracobrachialis
yeah,
probably
yeah, that one. And then
like
yeah,
right from
just
your armpit, right?
yeah,
Yeah, coracobrachialis.
and then yeah, getting my shoulders healthy, getting my chest healthy, and then that muscle healthy. We would do that when like my chest was just not feeling good, and so we do like one hook line day and three comp days. And for when I'm in the off season, it's usually my SBD days are usually singles, but when I'm in the off season, they're just variation singles. And then when I'm in comp days, when I'm in like competition, they're just going to be competition singles. Like when I'm 4 weeks out, like I have singles on Saturday and they're all competition. Let's say I'm, I don't know, 15 weeks out, then they're going to be like variation singles. And I have two bench singles, one on Saturday and then one on Wednesday.
Cool. How many of it do you mostly follow an RPE based system or is it percentages?
It's mostly RPE, but he like puts in some percentage like back downs after.
How many? What's the general RPE range that you usually do train in?
Um, it depends like where I am in the block. Like if I'm in the beginning of the block, it's going to be RP6, maybe even RP5. But as I just come closer to a competition, he's going to just slowly like ups it to like 7 and 8.
Cool. All right.
So
Cool. Awesome.
usually 6 to 7.5 is what I usually train with.
Mhm. And was that a big difference from what you were doing in the past?
Um, yeah. Usually in the past, like for small up, was that
Nine
percentage?
plus.
Yeah, that was all percentage. Yeah, that was well, it was it just depends from week to week. Like it would be like every set would be like RP 8.5 or something like that. But like it would be percentage based. So it would start off really easy and then I would go up basically 10 pounds every single week and like just max out. And then eventually when I'd be doing my 10 by 3 on Saturdays, it'd just be like RP like 9 every set. But then I would have to get every single set. But yeah, like that's the different. Made me a lot of progress, but it just eventually ended up slowly when I made a lot of progress on small love and then I lost like a good
Yep.
amount of it.
Yep. That's
That's
what
why.
so I really want to point that out. There's these aggressive type of programs. They work very, very well for like maybe like you're peaking. You
Yeah,
can do that for a short period of time, make a lot of strength gains. But in terms of the actual long-term training progression, typically moderate volumes and intensities will always win out in the long run for long-term progress and not having overuse injuries, tendonitis. Like for example, I usually only bench 2 times per week, and I usually squat high bar. But going on into my meet, I did more low bar, and I have really bad shoulder mobility. I upped my bench frequency to 3 times per week in the last 3 weeks before my meet, and I was doing like just a lot more intensity, and I got like I was averaging like an RPE 8 or more on all my sets, except for like one lighter day on like squat and bench. But I got like this really bad like forearm pain. I'm still recovering from it a little bit. Really bad shoulder pain. It kind of tanked my bench. Like it was peaking really well, and then I got, you know. Anyways, I think it's just interesting seeing that, you know, if even if you're doing one of those high intensity and high frequency, like they only work very well for so long, and then
yeah,
you're playing with fire, and if you survive, then you'll be able to do well, and then the other end, but typically it's best to just do what is what you're going to recover from. And I think it's interesting too. So from peaking, what has your experience been with that in terms of how much do you get out of a peak and a taper for your meets compared to like what you hit in training and then the platform?
yeah. So I'd say I'm just gonna go with off Sean because when I was at Pete, like it was a little different. But I'll go with what off Sean. So my last 2 meets with him, for my first meet, we didn't even do peak. We just trained into the meet basically and just reduced a little bit of volume, but no really definite peak because it wasn't like a meet that mattered that much. But for my last 2 meets, um, I squatted 562 at like 8.5 going into the meet, and then I squatted 3 kilos more on my squat. I maybe had like more 1 more kilo, but I squatted 3 kilos more in competition. And then for bench is the one that's like sorry, bench is the one that's like really iffy because I have a big arch and I'm training on the rogue competition, the rogue comp fat pad. So it's like the not the Thompson fat pad, it's just the competition rogue one. And they're allowed in some competitions, but most competitions they just don't want to use them. It's too expensive or whatever. So they just don't use them. So that like pad is just so overpowered that when you transition from that into like an Alico pad or an ER or Texas strength system, like you're gonna have to, for me personally, for big arches, I think you're gonna have to take some kilos off the bench if you're going from a road pad to like a skinny, hard bench pad. So I benched 353 going into the meet on a fat pad, on a rogue fat pad. And then Sean was like, we're gonna have to take some kilos off and like adjust your attempts a little bit because it's gonna be around 5 to 7.5 kilos less. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So I benched 341, so 5 kilos less basically. And then for deadlift, I was really happy what happened because I never really got a deadlift peak ever in my life. Like never. So when I deadlifted 606, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe 618, maybe 5 kilos more for my third going to the meet. And then I took 600 on my second attempt, and it was so easy at the meet. So we put in the American record, 280, put 287, which was also an unofficial world record at the time. But yeah, and then I got basically what 633 minus like 27 pounds out of my peak on deadlift. So that was that meet. This past meet, I got 0 on my squat because I had the squat on my 562 going into last meet before this. Besides this 584, the 584 was just harder, took more out of me, and he was just like, don't expect like 600 to be there because it's just not going to be there. Like if we compared it to the last meet, you might have 2.5 kilos more, so maybe 590s there, but 600 won't be there. Like you won't have that much. So I was fine with that. I'm happy that I hit 584 in the competition. And it moved faster also, so that's definitely a good thing to know. Bench, I just had problems going into this meet with my pec, so we just had an injury kind of just going into the meet, so we just took my comp single, like my best comp max, which is all right. Yeah, I don't really get much out of bench peaks or bench tapers because we already, like, it's very predictable what we're gonna hit. And same thing with squat, it's very predictable. It's just whatever I hit in the gym, I hit in the comp. For deadlift this meet, like I had very high expectations, and I'm pretty sure I would have hit what I was thinking about hitting. So I took 600 for my first, smoked it, but my hands started slipping, and then 633 failed, 633 failed. But for this meet, we were gonna go 660 or 655 for my third, but that didn't end up happening. But yeah, I was pretty good for like 650 at least for my third. So that'd be like my best comp was like 617. My best gym was 617. So like 650 minus 617, like 33, another 33 pounds out of out of deadlift peak. So what we realized that going into meets, we squat what we squat in the gym, we bench what we bench in the gym, and then maybe take a few kilos off because of the pad. It just depends what pad I'm on. And then deadlift, we get a pretty massive peak for deadlift.
That's my exact same experience. Mine is the whole fat pad.
Yeah.
Whenever I hit in the gym on squat or bench, I usually will hit basically right around that. It may be 2 to 5 kilos more on squat, bench exactly the same. And then deadlift is like as long as I eat going into it, it's a really solid peak. Like this last prep, I hit 640 at like Ep.9, and then I got 661 at the meet after like a big grinder on squat. USPA meets run forever. I was, and
Yeah.
then like so basically like I was like, for just a side rant about the federations. What's wrong with my light? But so if you're doing like a USPA meet, you're gonna need to bring your like sleeping bag and like some drawers and like a tent and like some video games, like maybe your Xbox, because you're not getting done until 8 hours later, at least.
That's funny.
USAPL meets, I know they're done in like 3 hours, right?
Yeah, like 4 hours max, but like usually
Yeah,
three to three and a half.
USPA meets are literally forever. So like literally like you go and I hit so I hit my squat at 10, and then I benched at 2, and then I deadlifted at 5.
Jeez.
Okay. So when you're doing that long of a day, like if you don't keep moving, and if you're not like grazing like a cow the entire time with like carbs, just like I eat entire box of cereal and like
Yeah.
like 8 protein bars. And I was just like, I got around to deadlift. It's just like I guess 2 scoops of pre now as I'm really tired. But yeah,
Yeah.
like
That's so hard.
it's kind of interesting because like everybody will kind of talk about like like peaking is like a lot of it is I think a lot of times people will mystify it and say, oh, like, because like some people do have really big peaking effects. Like some people will gain like massive amounts on all their lifts. A lot of that depends on what type of training paradigm that they do train with. Like Sean talks about this. There's like there's a bell shaped curve. Like you've seen his taper video, right?
Yeah.
Like people that operate with a really high fatigue paradigm, usually if you start tapering them and pulling back volume going on into a meet, they're going to just see this massive strength and improvement. But typically it's going to be pretty true still to what they hit in the gym. What they hit in the meet on most lifts, depending on leverages and all that stuff. But I think that that's something else that's really, really important is just to understand like your first meet, just hit what you hit in the gym, like see what's there on the day, but plan for that.
Yeah.
There's a massive skill of competing, of being in that mindset, you know, going into your attempts, trusting your gut when you call attempts, like, you know, not ego lifting. But yeah, man, like I that's like one side tangent about like meets is like USAPL does a better job of running the pacing of it. And I think that's because they have generally smaller meets with smaller flights. Like how many people are in the typical USAPL flight? Like 10?
Like 10 to 12.
Yeah, and how many flights? Like two?
Yeah, like two max, like two. Yeah, yeah, like two, like eight, like A and B, basically.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we have like A, B, C, and D.
Oh
And
my
so
god.
you have like 10 to 15 lifters per flight.
Yeah.
And it just takes forever. Like it's not a lot if you're just waiting around. Just like the USPA has a little, it has a, it has a little bit of a different model. But yeah, that's something I would say is be aware of like what the day is going to be, plan for it, so then you can actually have your best performance on the platform. But yeah,
Yeah.
would you say that you have really good leverages for the deadlift? Um,
Not particularly. Like I don't. I'm like a very like my build basically. It's very average. Like I don't have extremely long arms. Like my legs are like pretty average. Like not really. Like I have to lift the bar like pretty high. Like I'm not like locking it out at my knees. Like I'm locking it out like basically like at my upper thigh.
mhm. That's interesting because I think that I don't know. It was like I think something that I was looking at like when I first came across you was I'm like this kid has big thighs, like you have big quads,
Yeah.
um, and like everything else just is like I can tell it's basically just like a genetic gift. You are just strong. You are just born strong. And like guess so like what's your favorite lift?
Squat.
Squat. Why do you like
Yeah.
squat so much? Just because you're
Because
really good at it.
I'm the best at squat. Yeah.
Squat. Um, yeah, I guess actually this would be interesting. What do you what would be your biggest advice to anybody who wants to get into powerlifting and then going off of that the first meet?
So I would say, so my advice for someone to get into powerlifting, um, like my biggest thing was just to get out there and just try it. Like I didn't care about how strong I was. I just wanted to beat myself and like what I had in the gym. I was just like, all right, I just want to do like a little bit better than me. And I just wanted to just do a meet. I just wanted to put up a total. I just wanted to just try it out basically because that's what my friend is like, dude, just try it out. Like, I was like, I was already into it before I even like did my first meet. So maybe you have to have like a little enthusiasm, going into your thing. Like you don't want to force yourself to do powerlifting, but you'll know if you like it if you do your first meet and you get the whole vibe from it. If you hate, I don't know, if you just hate, if you don't like lifting, you're not going to like it. But if you like lifting and you like maxing out, it's a fun thing. Going to your first meet, just have fun. Don't weight cut because that's like the one thing people always, they're like, oh, like what should I weigh in as, or just don't, just have fun. Try to go 9 for 9. This is basically what I hear everyone else say. Go 9 for 9, and yeah, just have fun and just put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, you could pull the Adam Peeler trick of weighing in 7 pounds light every single meet. Too, and just really make it really confusing for everybody there, like why you weigh 176 pounds but your weight class is 181.7. But yeah, I echo that. Like I think a lot of people take it a little bit too seriously when they're just thinking about getting into it, thinking they have to like be
Yeah.
the top of the pack. Like I think people need to realize people like you're like the freak of nature that doesn't exist. Like go like I always have to remind myself whenever I go to like an actual gym, like even like a local powerlifting gym, like you're like most people aren't like that. You're not. There's most people are not Sean Noriega, John Hack, Russell,
Yeah.
Alex Sydor, like with insert X person who is one of the best in the sport right now. Um, you're probably going to be okay. And there's something else too is that powerlifting is just such an incredibly inclusive community. And if you step into a powerlifting gym, people talk to you. It's a very extroverted environment. There's music playing. Every single meet I've been to, helped spot and load at. I've helped, and just I competed at. And I'm curious if this is your same experience, but everybody's just really nice and they want everybody else to succeed, even if they're
Yeah.
competing against each other, because like that's what people are all about. It's just like I think it's a little bit different from bodybuilding, because I know that there's a little bit of a different dynamic in like the backstage areas for bodybuilding, because you're competing in a subjective sport. Powerlifting, it's like if you're stronger than me, you're stronger than me, and hats off to you.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. And like one thing to add on about like how everyone's so nice. Like when I was in Florida and I was basically I was with my handler, and then I was like I'm pretty good friends with Taylor Atwood, you know. So we're sitting down, we're talking to each other, and then we take our attempts. And like on my like third deadlift attempt, because his whole family's there, is like I think his like aunt was there, his sister was there, like so many people. His mom was there, his dad was there. Well, his dad was actually handling him, but like everyone was there. And like as I was taking, because I was the I think I was right before he was gonna go. No, no, actually, no, I was in another fight. But yeah, I was taking my delta step anyway, and they're like going ballistic for me. Like they're like, "Come on, let's go!" And like it was just awesome seeing like their family just like rooting me on. So that's just the one thing I noticed. Like um, everyone just wants to see the best. I think for people, in my opinion, like they just want to see how strong someone can be, basically.
Yeah, and again, like powerlifting celebrates all sports. On my last podcast I had with Bryce Lewis, he said that the TSA, they celebrate strength of all levels, and they believe that all strength should be celebrated. And I think that powerlifting in general, at the core of it, it does celebrate all levels of strength. And like at the highest level, it can get kind of catty, because like it's the highest level. They're competitive. They want to win, and that's okay. That's how competent. That's how sports are. Like it's always made me laugh. Or somebody's like, you should like always be really nice to each other. I'm like, dude, like look, if it's IPF Worlds,
Yeah,
like you want to win. Like it's not like you're going to be there like looking at like Sweden and going like, please beat me. Like it's like no,
yeah,
like you want to win. And like obviously when it comes down to it, like you want to do your best. But I think that typically it's like, oh, after the meet's done, I'll shake your hand. I think that Taylor Atwood actually talks about this. That he I think he missed his deadlift or something like that. uh I think it was like 2018 Worlds, and the one other guy that did win, he actually got down with it, and I think it was some technicality that Taylor got
yeah.
down with.
That was at 2016, and
Yeah,
when they were in Houston.
yeah, and so like the one guy came up to him after and was like, "You champion."
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Like he knew that like he was better than him, but he just got called.
yeah.
That was
Yeah, he told me that
something.
story.
And what other sport would somebody win and then come up to their competitor and say, "You actually beat me. You're actually stronger than me. I recognize that." That's
Yeah,
the one.
not many sports.
Yeah. So, all right. So I guess, what are your plans for going forward? I mean, obviously, so you have this meet in a few days, and then yeah, if like a few weeks, 26 days out.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, and then are you competing at Ronettes?
Yeah. So yeah, competing in CNAT's 28 days. I'm looking to just place like top five as my like first year, because it's gonna be my freshman year. So just gonna just try to place top five. Um, just gonna have fun, just gonna be competing with the college people. There's some big heads going there, so it's gonna be fun competing with them. It's gonna be a nice atmosphere. And yeah, I don't I'm not gonna be I didn't get in time for the sign up and run nationals, but I just literally
Your
just did a meet,
autofill
and then
wasn't there. Your autofill
yeah,
was broke.
yeah. But with run nationals, everything got like messed up with how the sign not like the signups, but like the schedule works, because they don't have a prime time session anymore. Basically, and only a few minutes, like 54 people per each weight class can go, which sucks, because usually there would be like over. I mean, for males, I think it'd be over like 100, like easily for each weight class if you include teens, juniors, and open. But yeah, they just messed it up with only letting like a select amount of people in, and then the whole class is open. There's no like teen or junior. It's just all open. So I was So I was just talking to Sean. I was like, what do you want me to do? Collegiates, teen nationals, which is in Colorado, which is a month later after collegiates, or raw. And he's like, collegiates is gonna, and this is before my last meet. Collegiates is gonna be the quickest turnaround, which is gonna be hard. Um, teen nationals, like that's just not gonna be fun because you're just gonna just there's no competition. And then like not trying to be cocky or anything, but like it
No,
just wouldn't.
sure. No,
It just wouldn't.
numbers don't lie.
Yeah, but that's what he said. And then like raw nationals, since because my goal was going into raw nationals was like whenever it was going to be was to try to make prime time for the top 10 lifters of 83 kg. But since they didn't have that, and then since they like just made it limited where it would be hard to get in, like I just like, all right, I'll just do collegiates and just have fun there. And then yeah, so I'm not doing raw nationals. After collegiates, just gonna keep training, take some time off from powerlifting, but not compete for a while and just see when the next big competition is going to come up. I was going to compete at the Arnold this year, but since it got canceled and moved, I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, well, awesome, man. Like, obviously, you're going to have a big future in that, and best of luck going into that. I mean, I guess just to end off this podcast on like a little bit of I guess more of a fun note. Um, who's your favorite power lifter to just watch make progress on Instagram?
Mm-hmm. Let me think about that for a second.
Or like not favorite, but like I guess like top three or whatever.
Okay, let me just think. I would say number one would be John Hack, number two would be Taylor Atwood, and then number three would be Ashton Ruska.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think that Ashton is like all of those are really awesome. Like awesome, you gotta love John Hack.
Yeah.
Ashton's insane, and Taylor, obviously like those are awesome lifters. I did want to ask, how have you ever struggled with like comparison to people in the sport? Have you always done a pretty good job of just like focusing on yourself and your own rate of progression?
Yeah. I mean, I would always try to focus on that, but in my head, I'd be like, I wouldn't necessarily compare myself to people or people above me, but I'd be like, I want to achieve that, or I want to achieve more than that. I wasn't like comparing myself, but I always wanted to like get to that level or more. I don't know if that's a comparison,
Yeah,
but it was basically like, I just want to be the best. Like, that's what I want to do. It's not like I don't have the mindset where I'm like, I want to beat myself. Like I want to be at the top, but obviously be myself, but be at the top. Like that's what my goal is.
yeah, and I think that's the exact right mindset. Is I know that because I coach people. A lot of people will struggle with that comparison, like think like they have to like be like somebody else, and just like no, just like use that as inspiration, like what you said, and try to be the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. Do everything that you can with your sleep, your training, and recovery, and
Exactly.
just give yourself the best chance. And if if you need more help, hire a coach. You know,
Yeah.
like we both have coaches. You're one of the best, in your division, and you have a coach. And so, if this is something that really matters to you, then invest in the sport. Um, and do your best. And the really awesome thing about powerlifting is that as long as you're eating, you're training, and you're sleeping somewhat intelligently, you're going to make progress.
Yeah.
And if you're not making progress, well, you probably should address one of those things and make a change. But I guess to end this off, Alex, where can people find you? Uh, yeah,
Media. So like my Instagram is Alex Sydor and my YouTube is Alex Sydor.
it's Sydor, not Sidor.
It's I was gonna say that to you
Okay,
as
so
well.
you should have told me that at the very beginning. Okay, this is awkward.
Sorry.
Sydor.
I forgot about that. But
No, you're
yeah.
good. um,
No, everyone when I was growing up, everyone was just like they called me like cider, apple cider, whatever you want.
Cider.
Yeah,
Oh, I like that. People in Utah have a hard time saying peeler. I've
yeah.
gotten called pillar.
Yeah.
Pillar. I'm like, nope, that's nope. Good try. But
That's
anyways, thanks so much for coming on, Alex. And yeah, make sure you guys go follow him. He's just at the beginning, so who knows? I guarantee you that in a few years, Alex is going to be you know one of the top juniors and up there with the Open. So
the
and
goal.
probably hopefully going head to head with your coach.
That's the big goal. That's what I want. Like I know because everyone says like when are you gonna go up a weight class? I've gotten that a lot and like by my friends like when do you want to go up? And like I still have like I got business to do in 83. Like I want to like try to beat those top guys, which is like people are gonna be like, oh, it's impossible. Like you're not gonna beat Sean, you're not gonna beat Russ, but like just give me a few years, just give me a
Yeah,
few. That's the biggest thing, which is like because I'm 5'9", I'm 5'10. People are gonna be like, you're gonna have to go to 93, but it's just like I gotta, you can always make things work.
absolutely. All right. Well, I thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, stay safe, stay strong.